The $500 lie. How the rich trick you into staying poor forever. Picture this. You're standing in a store, two shirts in front of you. Same cotton, same factory, same stitching. One costs $10. The other costs $500, and the only difference is a tiny logo stitched onto the chest. Every economics class you ever sat through told you the cheaper shirt wins. Lower price, higher demand. That's the law. That's supposed to be the bedrock of the entire system. And yet the $500 shirt sells out in minutes while the $10 shirt sits folded on the shelf, untouched, ignored, embarrassing. Something is broken. Or maybe nothing is broken at all. Maybe you're the one being played, and you don't even know the rules of the game you're losing. My name is Dylan, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time studying why smart, hardworking people make financial decisions that quietly destroy their future. If you've ever felt that strange, magnetic pull to buy something you couldn't really afford, just to prove to yourself, to your coworkers, to some imaginary jury watching your life, that you've made it, then stay with me, because today we're going to rip apart the psychology of status. And by the end of this video, you might never look at your own spending the same way again. Let's start with the glitch itself. Economists have a name for it. The Veblen paradox, named after a man who despised the wealthy so thoroughly that he spent his entire career reverse engineering their behavior. But before we get to him, understand the mechanism, because it is stranger than you think. In a normal market, when the price of something rises, fewer people want it. That's not opinion. That's the law of demand, taught in every introductory economics course on the planet. But for a small, strange category of goods, watches, handbags, cars, real estate in the right zip code, the opposite happens. Raise the price, and demand rises with it. Lower the price, and the object becomes worthless, not financially, but socially. It becomes invisible. Nobody wants to own the thing that everyone can afford. Now rewind to 1899. America is drowning in new money. The Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, an entire class of industrialists inventing wealth at a scale the world had never witnessed. And into this glittering, grotesque spectacle walks an economist named Thorstein Veblen, a man who looked at the parties, the yachts, the diamond-studded everything, and instead of admiring it, started taking notes like a scientist observing a new species. He noticed something the other economists had completely missed. These people weren't buying things because the things were useful. They were buying silver spoons too heavy to lift, corsets that made it physically difficult to breathe, shoes designed explicitly to be impossible to walk in. Utility wasn't just secondary. It was actively being sacrificed. And Veblen realized why. In a society obsessed with hierarchy, the fastest, most efficient way to prove your position at the top is to publicly, visibly, unmistakably waste resources. He gave this behavior a name that has survived over a century: conspicuous consumption. The message isn't "look what I own." The message is "look what I can afford to throw away and still survive." This is where the price stops being a cost and becomes the entire product. Think about that for a second, because it's genuinely disturbing once you see it clearly. A Rolex does not tell time better than a $40 Casio. In fact, the Casio is probably more accurate. But if Rolex woke up tomorrow and decided to slash prices down to $200, closer to what the materials and labor actually cost, they wouldn't sell more watches. They would collapse as a company within a year. Why? Because the moment that watch becomes something the assistant manager at a grocery store can casually afford, it stops working as a signal for the CEO wearing it in the boardroom. The exclusivity is the mechanism. The barrier is the point. Raising the price doesn't just fail to reduce demand. It manufactures desire, because a higher price constructs a smaller, more exclusive club. And the smaller the club, the louder the signal. This is the inverted demand curve. And once this feedback loop starts spinning, there is functionally no ceiling. That is how you end up with handbags selling for the price of a house. But here's where the story turns from strange economics into a genuine tragedy, because this game has a victim, and it's not the billionaire. When a person worth $300 million buys a $250,000 car, it is a rounding error. It doesn't touch their compounding wealth in any meaningful way. It's pocket change evaporating from an ocean. But watch what happens further down the ladder. The middle class looks upward, sees this behavior, and starts imitating it, not out of admiration, but out of fear. Veblen called this pecuniary emulation. It might be the single most financially destructive instinct hiding inside the human brain. You don't buy the luxury SUV because you can comfortably afford it. You buy it because you are terrified of what it means if people suspect you can't. You're not purchasing a car. You are purchasing the appearance of a car you deserve, financed at 8% interest, while the actual mechanism of wealth, index funds, retirement contributions, compounding interest quietly working in the background, gets starved to feed the illusion. And this instinct didn't appear out of nowhere. It's not a modern flaw, not something invented by advertising executives in the 1950s. It's ancient. It's older than currency, older than agriculture, baked directly into the architecture of the primate brain. Look at peacock. That tail is absurd. It's heavy, it's colorful, it makes flight nearly impossible, and it turns the bird into a slow-moving buffet for any predator with a pulse. From a pure survival standpoint, the tail should have been eliminated by natural selection generations ago. But it wasn't, because the tail isn't communicating survival efficiency. It's communicating surplus. It's telling every peahen in the vicinity, I am so genetically dominant, so overflowing with resources that I can carry this ridiculous handicap around and still thrive. Conspicuous consumption is the human peacock tail. The oversized house with the pool nobody swims in, the third car sitting in a garage collecting dust, the watch that costs more than a semester of college. These are handicaps we voluntarily strap onto our own finances to broadcast fitness to a tribe that, statistically, is far too busy worrying about its own signal to actually notice yours. Now here's the part that should genuinely make you angry, because this instinct has been identified, studied, and deliberately weaponized against you. Marketing departments and luxury conglomerates have spent decades perfecting the science of artificial scarcity. Look at how certain handbag brands operate. You don't simply walk in and buy the flagship product. You're required to spend money on smaller items first, sometimes for years, just to earn the privilege of being offered the bag you actually wanted. That's not inefficiency. That's not an accident of supply chains. That is an engineered ritual designed from the ground up to trigger the exact primal status anxiety Veblen described over 100 years ago, except now it's backed by behavioral psychologists, focus groups, and data models that understand your insecurities better than you understand them yourself. And the cruelest part of the entire system is that the finish line keeps moving. Veblen called it the treadmill of consumption, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The instant the middle class manages to stretch its budget far enough to afford the entry-level luxury item, the base model German sedan, the smallest logo-covered handbag, the wealthy abandon that category entirely and move somewhere else, somewhere still out of reach. The logo that once whispered wealth now screams desperation, because everyone has one. So the elite pivot to what insiders call quiet luxury. Unmarked cashmere, unbranded leather, fabrics that only someone equally wealthy would recognize by touch alone. Meanwhile, the middle class scrambles to catch up, discarding the logo-covered items they just finished paying off. Racing toward the next signal. You are sprinting on a treadmill against people with infinite stamina and a head start measured in generations. And the bitter irony sitting underneath all of it is this: the exact behavior you're using to prove you belong in the wealthy class. The overspending, the financing, the underinvesting is the precise mechanism guaranteeing you stay permanently locked out of it. So how do you actually get off the treadmill? Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody selling you a handbag or a car will ever say out loud. Real status, in the world we actually live in, is not visible. It doesn't photograph well. It doesn't fit in a driveway. The person driving a 10-year-old sedan with $3 million quietly compounding in a brokerage account has more actual freedom, more real power, more genuine security than the person leasing a brand new luxury SUV while sitting 2 missed paychecks away from financial collapse. One of them can quit a toxic job tomorrow morning. The other one can't even afford to get sick. True wealth, the kind that survives recessions and layoffs and market crashes, is almost always invisible by design, because the people who actually have it stopped needing anyone else's approval a long time ago. This means the entire strategy has to shift. Stop asking whether you can afford something on a monthly payment plan, and start asking a much sharper question. Am I buying this because it serves me, or because it performs for other people? Would I still want this exact object if I were the last human being on Earth, with no one left to witness me owning it? If the honest answer is no, you are not making a purchase. You are making a payment on a costume, financed against your own future, handed directly to strangers who, statistics suggest, are almost certainly drowning in the exact same debt-fueled performance you are. Thorstein Veblen spent his career proving that we are, at our core, status-obsessed primates dazzled by shiny objects, wired by millions of years of evolution to chase signals instead of substance. But the difference between us and the peacock is that we are capable of recognizing the trap. We can consciously choose compounding over consumption, freedom over performance, quiet security over loud, expensive, temporary applause. The most powerful signal a human being can send in this economy isn't a logo on a chest or a hood ornament on a car. It's the calm, unbothered look of someone who has genuinely stopped playing a game they were never designed to win. That's real wealth. That's the only status that actually protects you when everything else falls apart. Subscribe to Dylan Invests if this video changed how you'll look at your next purchase, because next time we're breaking down exactly how this same psychological trap is quietly draining your retirement account. And I promise you, it's happening in a way you've never noticed before.